Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my first live class. It's been a little bit since I've been in a classroom. Unfortunately, I've been working behind the scenes, but thank you all for tuning in this morning. And I hope that we'll get a chance to dig in a little bit about marketing and all of this craziness that's going on. Before we get started, I want to ask a very simple question. How is everyone doing right now? I hope you're well, and your family as well, and your business as well. And thank you also for that compliment about my work. Yeah, I've been working with REDAVID for quite a while now, and truth be told, they are some of the nicest people that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Marco and Leonardo REDAVID are just incredibly kind and inspirational, really dedicated to the industry, which in this day and age is very inspiring. Well, so I don't hold up any more of your time. Let's dig right in here. Today I want to talk a little bit, it's the first of a two-part series that I wanted to do with you, talking about how crisis shapes the industry that we're in and also creates some unique opportunities. One of my favorite shows of all time is The West Wing. I've got an interesting quote that relates to what we're talking about. If you don't know a lot about Marco and Leonardo REDAVID, they had a little message here for you. For the first time in the history of the beauty industry, we're facing a really unique crisis that's affecting everyone globally. Most importantly, they wanted everyone to really take a breather, focus on self, take stock, and we'll be able to get through this. As for me, a little bit about me, I've been in the industry since 1998, and truth be told, it's the only industry that I've ever known. I started with a beauty supply distributor out of Newburyport eons ago in 1998, and I've never looked back. In that time, I've been blessed to work with some really amazing people that not only inspired me, but also shaped me, what I believe I was able to be mentored by some really talented people. I've worked in every facet of the business. At a distributor, I worked at virtually every level. I've worked with salons as well directly. I've worked with manufacturers. I've created 2 different product lines that I helped create, as well as an academy that we had set up for continued learning. I've been with REDAVID for a while now, working mostly behind the curtain on the evolution of the product line, on education and marketing. But we're going to change that starting this year, so I'm going to come out more from behind the curtain and get a chance to interact with you all. Yeah, my favorite show of all time is The West Wing, which is maybe a little bit more of an optimistic spin on American politics. This quote from season 3, episode 8 is really relevant to now. The most costly disruptions always happen when something we take completely for granted stops working for a minute. I don't think any of us anticipated that the industry would simply shut down. No one could predict a shutdown of this type. Going 8 to 10 weeks for a haircut or color for everybody mandatory was kind of unheard of. We've never had anything occur like this before. There's no frame of reference. And so it leaves the entire industry kind of up in arms. Talking about, is this a recession? The reason that matters is it really dictates what's going to happen in the marketplace. And so you understand how a recession is determined. The U.S. Census Bureau in 2008 reported on what we've known for over a century, that our industry is recession-proof. But since we don't know we're in one, let me explain a little bit about how it's determined. And the process is a little odd. a dating committee of renowned economists gathers to assess how the economy is doing. It's basically a candlelit dinner for them. Once they make their assessment, which is usually based on the GDP, or gross domestic product, falling for 2 quarters, they then send a note to the National Bureau of Economic Research, who in turn announces that we are in a recession. Here's the problem right now, though. We don't have enough data yet, so we don't really quite understand the full scope of what's going on. So the committee also can't meet to make this determination. Their announcement will likely come in July, which historically triggers a shaky stock market response. But at the end of the day, none of that historically impacts our own industry. And here's why. The craft of cutting hair cannot be outsourced or automated. While in the short term, your clients may have bought the gadget of the 90s, the Flowbee, to chop their locks, or are hitting the grocery stores in an attempt to master balayage, a skill that took you at least 3 to 4 years to master, they will be back. They'll be back because while we can change our oil, or paint our house, or make a pizza at home, most of us do not. Can does not equal want. Another reason that our industry is historically recession-proof is because we offer a range of services that can meet the financial situations of virtually every client. When things are tight, we stretch our appointments out. We maybe go for a few highlights instead of a full color change. We'll pop in maybe a few extensions to add a little depth as opposed to a full head. The thing is, your menu is flexible, and because it's flexible, clients can determine what they can afford when they can afford it. But most importantly, and this is the number one takeaway from this, when we live in uncertain times, a recession or even depression, there is an old saying that marketers rely on, and it never fails to be true. Big idea number 1, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. It's interesting because there's a psychology that comes into play here. It's natural right now to be afraid for your business and afraid for your livelihood. But today, I wanted to tell you not to be. And a little later, we'll dig into some important lessons and actions to take in the months following your reopening. But beyond making sure you can keep the lights on, the most important thing is not to panic. They will come back. To understand why, we need to go back to 2008. Now, if you remember what it was like back then, the housing crisis bust led to the FED, the Fed, dropping the fund rate to 3.5% to restore demand for homes. This started a global financial crisis that led to 2.6 million people ending up on unemployment. It was devastating to all industries. But if you were in the hair industry back in 2008 and 2009, a funny thing happened. You saw more bookings. The average salon owner in the United States reported an 8% increase during this period. In some instances, clients were stretching time between appointments to balance their budget, but they kept coming. And they kept coming for 2 reasons. 1, everyone needed to get a new job, and you're not going to get a new job if you show up and you've got 4 inches of regrowth, or you're a guy with shoulder length kind of ratty hair that desperately needs a cut. The second reason is that during times of stress, fear, and uncertainty, we lean into self-care. On September 11th, 2001, the world was shaken by a terrorist incident, and we then, as now, sheltered in place. People shut down travel. We stayed close to home. But then we did something amazing. We went shopping. Psychologists call our actions when faced with the awareness of our fear of mortality salience. We buy and pay for experiences that make us feel warm, comfortable, and cocooned. After 9/11, macaroni and cheese, lasagna, and chocolate purchases exploded, and so did salon business. Day spas offering facials, body treatment, and massages alone grew 125% after those subsequent months from September 11th. Even further back, during the Great Depression of the 1920s, the beauty industry was one of only two industries that weren't just stable, but grew. The other industry, ironically enough, was trash collection. When it comes down to it, we like to look that we are healthy and well. We like the ritual of beauty. It makes us feel better, pampered, and loved a little bit. When things are very wrong, we like to look to the outside world that everything is fine. The value of either or both of these reasons gives what you do a very unique value, one that clients that you have built a true relationship with will deem an essential expenditure when everything else is cut. Which brings us to big idea number 2. They will return. They will spend on essentials, but not every stylist is essential in the mind of your client. And here's why. Technician versus consultant. When you think of the word technician, what does that word conjure? What about the word consultant? What kind of a visual does that conjure? More often than not, when we want cable installed or plumbing done, we call a technician. But when we're planning a wedding, we call a consultant. This is important because we're living in an era of commoditization. Chances are right now there's a salon or spa right around the corner from you. Everything and everyone right now is a commodity. Even people are a commodity. There's psychology at play where relationships now, friendships, connections to people online, connections to family are more disposable than they once were. The problem with commodities is that they are both disposable and non-differentiable. A classic case of this is a low-cost chain hair salon. I can walk in there, no appointment needed, and I can get a cheap haircut. Their pricing model is based on a low-cost, high foot traffic on that one. But similarly, when is the last time you've seen one of those low-cost chains booming that they had every chair full? Last year, I was visiting friends down on the seacoast, and I was walking by one on a Saturday afternoon. There was one stylist in there, actually seated in a stylist chair, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and she was on her phone, and there wasn't a client in sight. Now, I would argue the experience of the average full-service salon is quite different. At 1 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, I imagine that you are very busy. The reason of this is that technicians are a commodity that does a simple service. So they'll communicate. They don't communicate at all. They kind of are focused on the service itself, much less deliver or craft an experience that's customized for you. It's mostly cookie cutter. And because of this, there's no unique value to the offering. So they're disposable, especially when people are cutting back. Consultants, however, communicate and then do. So they engage, they analyze, they use both empathy, intuition, and a little bit of a psychology to deliver a bespoke custom experience that's designed to elicit joy and make you individually and uniquely you very happy. That person has a unique value. That person is indispensable. That person will always have a full appointment book. Think about people that are indispensable in your life. They may be cheerleaders for you. They may be a therapist or a trusted friend, or maybe a mother or a father, someone that you lean into at particular times. In situations where we're holding back or we're cutting back on other things, there are people, places, and even things that we enjoy buying that become indispensable to us. And it's incredibly important for you to, especially now, make yourself truly indispensable. Big idea number 3. Times of crisis allow you to take stock and clean house. Now is the time for you to review your business and your knowledge. During this period, it's a perfect opportunity to take stock of your retail and your services, to evaluate their profitability. Are there products that you have that just don't move, that just sit on the shelf, that you, year after year, month after month, are trying to find ways to start moving? If you've been thinking about switching a color line, but you've been putting it off because you didn't want to disrupt your daily color business, now is the time to do so. Once you reopen, you'll want to be lean with inventory and not tie up profit on the shelves. But more importantly, make sure that you have full shelves. It sends a terrible message to clients when you have a cherry-picked, dusty retail shelf where it looks like you have no shampoos and only conditioners, or you have no styling pomades. If you're going to cut back, instead of 4 to 6 products deep, maybe consider 2 to 3 per SKU. And within those categories, clean up variants that have a slow turnover rate. If you're not tracking your retail inventory in your salon, you want to do so, because sometimes eyeballing enough isn't enough. If it takes you 2 months to move through 5 or 6 wax pomades, then you definitely do not need that many. Similarly, when it comes to services, many services will be blocked at the state level right now. I know here in New Hampshire, foiling, I believe, is not allowed. Blow drying is definitely not allowed. I was lucky enough to get to my salon finally because my hair was like this afro. And it was quite a different experience there, as far as spacing, the number of people that were allowed in, and blow drying was definitely a no-no. So make sure that you're aware from the state level legally what you're allowed to do and not do during this period. It's important to maintain social distancing and that degree of safety. So short term, you're going to have to retool your menu a little bit, get a little crafty, but also eliminate services that simply aren't popular. If a lot of salons that I've been into have a whole treatment room that they set up for aesthetics, as an example, and they never get enough people in for aesthetics. If that's the case, then maybe it's time to do something else with that room. Maybe clean out that room. And for clients that are a little leery or have a compromised immune system, it may make sense to set up a separate area for them, in which case make use of that empty room that's not doing you any business anyway. Beyond streamlining your business, it's also the perfect opportunity for you to hone your own skills. At a time when you can actually unplug from the day-to-day grind at the salon and expand your knowledge, do so. Get some mannequin heads at home so you can work on perfecting your skills that you've wanted to practice this whole time, but didn't have the clients or the time to do so. Now is the time for you to start upping those updo skills. Brides will be getting back on track the end of this summer, going into the fall and winter. Some weddings, I know people that I'm friends with that postpone their weddings until next year, but focusing on these skills also helps you to stay connected to your craft. It helps you stay creative, and keeps you focused during this time. Doing hair and getting into the same routine that you were used to day in and day out can also help you a little bit from a mental standpoint right now. Big idea number 4, prepare yourself for recession hair trends. Now, if you remember back in 2008, the biggest trend that year was ombre. The recession, the Great Recession back then, triggered a shift in hair color trends from more traditional full foil looks to ombre. And it's from that, ironically enough, that the balayage craze got started. It was a trend that required less maintenance and touch-up frequency than traditional hair color. And because so many clients right now are rushing to supermarkets and drugstores to attempt some DIY color, prepare yourself as well for having to do a lot of color correction work. And haircut works as well there for people who decided to chop their locks. Right now, it's important also to be sensitive to your clients' financial situations. This isn't a conversation to have directly unless you have a very close relationship with them. A lot of times when we're struggling financially, the last thing that we want to do is to talk to people about our reality. Our pride often runs deep. So use your intuition, read your client, offer them solutions, as we often make buying decisions in our minds. If a client you notice alters their usual standing appointment or decides to stretch out their time in between appointments or simply drop color completely, during your consultation, offer them solutions and try and anticipate this change. They'll love you for your intuition, and they won't have to feel guilty about talking about their financial reality. Big idea number 5, whatever you do not discount. This is a big one. All too often, businesses make the mistake of slashing the cost of their services or going overboard with coupons. This is always a mistake, as it shifts your business model into being a value-based model that will limit your profitability in the long term. Years ago, when I was coaching salon owners, we would immediately look at Groupon campaigns they were running. When I had them analyze the lifetime value and retention rate of customers that came in through that program, it became clear that it made absolutely no sense. Moreover, look at the psychographics of the typical Groupon or coupon shopping client. They make their decision based on the coupon alone. They chase the coupon. And because of this, they aren't loyal to a brand, a place, or a company. They're loyal to the dollars they put back in their pocket. And you can't grow a business with them. It just does not work. Instead of offering big discounts and coupons, always work on bundling and offer value-added opportunities for your services. Value-added specials can include combining cut and color services at a flat price, or in the instance of REDAVID, offering hair therapy cocktail treatments at the back bar that are nominally priced from a cost per use standpoint. So you can give them like a nice 15-minute deep conditioning treatment, get in some orchid oil dual therapy in there, and get them to feel like they're getting an extra special something right now that doesn't cost you anything more than pennies as far as a cost per use. Big idea number 6. Now is the time to think small. Now, prior to the shutdown, the dry bar concept had exploded in cities nationwide, and the reason for it was simple. It was ideal as an express service for women on the go. When I mentioned the importance of adding value earlier, many of our products pair perfectly with a color service, or even just to address the hair damage from box color attempts that they've been trying at home. So a nominal charge for a 50-minute wellness experience that incorporates scalp massage techniques into it can not only feel great for the guest, but can also be a small nominal service that anyone can love, and you can pad your services revenue a little bit. Big idea number 7, some clients may not return, or they will return less frequently. So now is the time to start that referral engine. Once you reopen, you're going to be very, very busy. But you'll likely be limited on capacity due to state guidelines. In the short term, you'll have many clients who want to catch up on services, but for the long term, it will be critical for you to have a steady referral program to garner clients to continue growing. Keep referral programs simple and easy to track, relying on cards that your clients can give to friends or family to bring them into your salon. Part of that referral engine will also require you to do a little legwork with local businesses who'll need help during this time. Talk to local florists, talk to formal attire locations who fit for wedding dresses, and start networking. Everyone right now is looking for assistance, so you can build your own network within your community. And as small business owners, really pool together and help each other out. Leave your cards at their locations to promote your hair services for brides-to-be. Big idea number 8. Whether you opened your salon last year or 20 years ago, it's going to be time for a relaunch. And this is going to be important because once businesses are allowed to reopen, social distancing will be in effect and mass gatherings will not be allowed. So plan accordingly for when you actually can throw a proper party, which may be looking at September, October, depending on how things go this summer. It's going to be your opportunity to drum up new business and up your salon profits going into next year. You want to recoup from the damage that this has done to your business. So you want to start planning an invitational night now for autumn. You can offer a special ladies' night out promotional evening. So feature hairstyle trends. You can get creative. Get your team on board with creating their own collection. Take a look at what's trending on the runway. Have fun with it, but take the opportunity to demonstrate some new looks to clients who may be stuck in kind of this same rut. This is also opportunity for you to create what's called a fair of services, where clients can even buy tickets to the event if it's going to be more of a feature, where they can come in and it's kind of a fair of services. If you've networked with local businesses, you'd be able to get them set up with food or drink. If there's a local place that makes their own beer or wine, it's a great opportunity for everyone to come together. I'm a huge fan of these kind of events, and they're always successful. Talk to restaurants, talk to caterers who can gain awareness for their own services and foods. Local clothing stores, local fashion designers can showcase some of their fashions. So if you have models that are willing guinea pigs for the hairstyles, put them in a dress, put them in something nice and trendy, and let that fashion designer get their name out there. Showcase some of the 2021 fashions on models with hair and makeup done by you or your team. Big idea number 9. It's time to really market your services. Chances are your average client looked at your service menu once ages ago and hasn't looked at it since. Never assume that just because you have services on your menu that clients will see, much less request them on their own. And part of promoting these services require some active marketing methods to build that awareness, such as tent cards, signs, scripts for when you pick up the phone, T-shirts, or even least the easiest is just speaking authentically about services and products that you experience for yourself. If there are products that you carry in the salon or even services that you haven't experienced for yourself, you can't speak from an authentic place. Take the opportunity to try the Orchid Oil Dual Therapy as a great instant transformation product if you haven't done so. If you have different services on the menu, hair treatments, deep conditioning treatments, smoothing treatments, if there are services on your menu that you've never experienced for yourself, you can't talk about them in an authentic way. And that enthusiasm that we have when we're excited about a product or a treatment carries through. It gets people to want to try it and buy it for themselves. Active marketing also is very different from passive marketing. When business is good, we tend to get complacent. We all do. So we rely on passive marketing methods where the business is kind of on autopilot. You know, your salon may be in a great location traffic-wise, so you don't have to work too hard about bringing people in the door. But all of that is passive. You're basically waiting for business to come to you. Active would be creating a sales funnel for yourself where you're reaching out, you're building leads, you're getting them in. Now is the time to deploy active marketing methods and really think about how you can do them. Get the word out when you are going to be open. So if your state now has an open date or has already, you want to make sure that you communicate that to clients. So social media, don't just do a static post. If it were me, I would do a video post. Build some of that rapport with your clients, have a glass of champagne in hand, and as an owner, just let them know the date that you're going to be reopened and tell them, set the expectation. In the instance of my salon that I was just at, they sent out an email and also did a social media post and explained how the social distancing would work, explained that masks were mandatory, that sanitizer would be mandatory, explained what services could and could not be done. Just be communicative. Clients will be patient, but just take the opportunity to set that expectation. The other key important here gets down into retail. When service profits are down, there's only one place that we can make up in our margins, and that's retail. And for decades, owners, managers, and even manufacturers have struggled to really incorporate home care recommendations into the client experience organically. The problem, I think, is that there's an obvious disconnect. And I think it's the very reason that we struggle to get the average stylist to feel comfortable making recommendations. And it's simply this: you're artists. So you live in the side of the brain that is all about artistry, empathy, emotion, and wellness. Sales is the exact opposite mode of thinking. It's a different hemisphere of the brain. So there's a mental disconnect. And so it makes almost every stylist feel awkward or uncomfortable to broach the subject of retail. We don't want to seem like we're being pushy or that we're being cheesy or awkward. I explain it like this. Why is what you're doing in that moment when you're making that recommendation any different than if a friend asked you for advice on their hair or asked your opinion about a restaurant or an outfit? If you've defined yourself as a true consultant in beauty, you've reached a relationship level with your guest where they will trust your opinions and insight. They're waiting for you to tell them. And the formula for this is 3 simple words: tell, educate, recommend. Explain what the problem is, educate them on how you can fix it and how you are going to fix it, and recommend what they need to keep it from happening again. It doesn't matter if it's fried hair or a compromised cuticle or a scalp condition. Whatever it is, let them know what they need to prevent it from happening. It's really that simple. This can be easy for guests who know you and are comfortable with you. But with new clients, there's also a cost in not recommending products in that first visit. I'm going to share a statistic that blew my mind and showed me an insight. And this is my favorite statistic that I've ever come across. Mintel is a marketing analysis group, and they did a study into salon hair care a few years back and determined something shocking. If a new client purchases 2 retail products, there is a 60% chance they'll return. If a client purchases no retail products, there's only a 10% chance that they will return. Why? If you can get a client who doesn't know you from a hole in the wall to walk out the door with 2 products, you've sold yourself. You've sold your expertise, and you've built a connection with them from a powerful first impression. They came to you with a beauty goal, and you helped them achieve it and sent them out the door with what they needed to retain that goal. Things will get back to normal, and our industry is resilient. So take the time to plan your reopening and your future strategy now. The industry will evolve as it always does, but you will be okay. And I'll tell you how I know. I'm a little bit of a history nerd, and beyond history in generally, I'm fascinated with the history of the beauty industry. And this particular story is a fascinating one that brings all of this stuff home. In August of 1944, a reporter for Vogue magazine rode into the ruined city of Paris on a tank with American liberation troops. As they rounded a corner, they saw an odd scene: women lined up and milling into a hair salon named Gervais. The reporter hopped off the tank, walked in the door, and was greeted with a ridiculous scene so baffling that he immediately made some notes and cabled back to his editor about it. Paris at this point had been without power for a very long while. Now, the owner Gervais couldn't run his business without a hairdryer, so he adapted. He hired teams of boys from the neighborhood to gather rubble to stoke his furnace. He rigged his hairdryer to his heating ducts and built a fan system on conveyor belts powered by teams of the boys who took turns riding a stationary bicycle that powered the whole thing. The boys biked almost 200 miles a day, and Gervais saw 160 clients every day. He adapted and thrived, as we all will. He was the only salon open in Paris. I love that story. You can get through this, and more importantly, you can emerge with a stronger business than before. Don't panic. If that's actually it for me today for this quick little session here. This, as I said, is the start of a two-part series. In the next one, I want to talk a little bit about branding and self-branding. I think that's important because a lot of what I do and have done is focused on branding. I've worked with people on their personal brands and also curating professional brands. And I think right now it's going to be really important for every salon and every stylist to focus in and decide what their brand is and how to shape that and how to tell a story and really shape your personality so you can be stronger, more memorable, and really start to build true relationships with people. If anyone has any questions, I am more than happy to answer them for you at this point. Feel free to ask away in chat here. Well, thank you very much for that, Cindy. Much appreciated. And if there are no questions, that's okay too. Great. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you have a good weekend. And here's hoping that this summer things get cleaned up and we're able to go back to work quite soon. Take care, and thank you for tuning in.